This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
The church needs to know. This is Wretched Radio. Stumbled across a story from a number of years ago of a couple with 4 boys deciding to adopt 3 kids, bringing a firestorm into their home. And the church, which regularly encourages people to adopt, needs to know about this so they can warn them, make sure they are prepared for it, and commit to helping. This is my bottom line. If a church is not willing to say to any couple who adopts, we are going to be here for you until the day you die, helping you with these kids, then that church shouldn't be preaching adoption. It takes a church to adopt a kid, and you're hearing that in a story. I'm keeping her name out of it. I hope these folks are doing well and they've hopefully recovered. Sharing the story about bringing these 3 kids in, and one of the issues that is so prevalent in this, she shares, of spending hours on the phone every day trying to figure things out. Where should I turn? They would go to friends, and friends would think they were bad parents. They would go to the church, and the church would think, do they need discipline for being such terrible parents? Very little is written about this. Very few studies have been done. And this couple, confused. Why are the kids defecating on the walls and writing their name in their own bodily functions? That's what they're dealing with here. The story continues. I remember this, actually. The dad was sick one day, and so mom takes the 7 kids. Remember, 4 biological, 3 RAD kids. And the kids were squiggling and wiggling, and she couldn't keep them under control. Then after the service, I was approached by a new family. The lady in the group began to give me all the advice she felt necessary for me to parent the children, because clearly I was doing something wrong. So here's this poor woman with 3 kids who are not controllable, doing her best in church. Somebody who was visiting gives her a lecture on parenting. Oofda. I graciously received her rebukes and thought nothing about it, as people often gave me unsolicited advice, not knowing anything about our situation. This gets shockingly worse. The following Friday, my husband came home at noon and said we needed to talk. Someone had gone to our elders at church complaining about my behavior on Sunday. They said they observed me with the children and went and spoke with a person they knew in the field of psychology. You got the connection here? I saw them do one thing in the parking lot, so I went to a psychologist. The psychologist told me what was going on from my little observation in the parking lot, called up the pastor to complain about the parents. Lovely. These children were clearly being abused, was the accusation. Now, this person who has never laid eyes on me or my children, who heard an account, so it's even secondhand, it wasn't even seen in the parking lot, oh man, Scylla, who heard an account of what transpired from a person visiting my church. So the woman, the woman visiting the church who saw her in the pews tells a friend who calls a psychologist, who then calls the pastor to say, you got child abuse going on. What? I had given everything I had to serve these children. I had endured every possible affront, assault, short of physical violence at the hands of these kids. I had given my time, money, energy, and resources, and this unknown, unseen person had the audacity to make this claim. And that was just the beginning. Part 2 of the story. Oh, how this affects families. This is a consideration if you're thinking about adopting that you simply need to be aware of. If you've already got kids in the house, they will be affected, period. Period. They will be affected. They will not go untainted from this. You need to know that. My biological boys were able to follow basic instructions, especially in public. Not perfect, of course, but they obeyed. The adoptees were very, very different. They would go with anyone who asked them, knock stuff off the shelves, stop and stare at something in a deep trance state, and never know we'd moved on. Ask an adoptive parents how many times they've said, come on, Justin. Justin, come on. Come on. Come on, ask them. I could not give them simple commands and have them follow, like stand over there, sit here, or go to the bathroom. I would be met with blank stares and worse acts of open defiance. They were always the reality wherever we were. When it was our turn to check out, my 3 oldest stayed at the cart and loaded them onto the belt. I told my bio 6-year-old, same age as the adopted son, Jason, not Justin, Jason, to go and stand at the other end of the checkout. I watched each adoptee separately at the end, taking them by the arm. If I held their hand to do this, they would only pull their hand away and stand there defiantly, not moving or obeying, daring me to say something in front of the crowd, and made sure they were standing in a safe place near me where I could see them. She grabs them by the arm to move them along. As my items were being passed under the scanner, an unknown woman approached me from behind, bent around me until her face was in mine, and asked me with an indignant tone if I were a foster parent. I said not anymore and continued to check out. The lady, a total stranger, followed me and my children to our van, shouting at me that she didn't like the way I, quote, handled those children. She proceeded to tell me she had written down our license plate number and was going to call the appropriate authorities to report my atrocious behavior. Now, you say that's just strangers. Oh no, as you will soon hear, that happens inside of the church. Already did. As I read further on attachment, it became clear to me we had done everything wrong to encourage bonding from the beginning, not intentionally, but out of ignorance. It is important that adopted children learn to seek their comfort and solace with the new family only. Some adoption agencies recommend the new family rarely put their adopted child down, always holding them, never letting anyone else hold the child. So to get relief, they would have other people hold them, but then the child just indiscriminately bonds, doesn't bond correctly. Everything is flipped upside down for these people. My husband sent out an email to our church body explaining briefly the difficulties the children were having bonding, though they'd been with us for 2 years now. And now we were fairly educated on reactive attachment disorder. We wanted to do all we could to give the children their best opportunity for success. So we asked all the families to please not pick up our adopted children, even when the kids asked. And they always asked, even when instructed otherwise. That request met with outrage. In fact, one of the ladies was so upset that she accused me of sinning because I was denying her the right to show my children brotherly affection. Wow. Very few respected our wishes, and thus came the beginning of the end. I was becoming increasingly tired of living in survival mode. I could never fully rest because even in the middle of the night, things were being destroyed, stolen, urine saturated. Every noise I heard had to be investigated. Kids had to be kept in separate rooms when I was not in a room with them to keep them from destroying stuff. Jason was banned from the kitchen and pantries for his constant stealing, so he began to send the twins to do his bidding. So we had to keep them all separated. We became prisoners in our own home. I began to speak with doctor after doctor. Continued to speak with doctor after doctor, social workers, caseworkers, to no avail. About 6 months after the no-holding email, I received a text from my best friend's husband. They wanted to meet with us to discuss some things. They came to our home the next evening. My friend, my confidant, came for a visit. We were expecting, we want to support you. I was met with 2 full pages, front and back, of complaints against me. Anything and everything I'd ever done, said, or appeared to have done was brought up and criticized. It was my fault the children were having trouble because I refused to hold them when feeding. Instead, I put them in swings and had the boys do it. Never mind what it was, I was to blame. I apparently had exaggerated Jason's stealing. After all, kids take a marshmallow from the pantry now and again. Pay no mind that a few weeks before this meeting, Jason again snuck into the kitchen when I went outside, ate an entire flat of raspberries, and swallowed grapes whole. How do I know they were ingested whole? Because before I came back inside, he vomited everything up because he had eaten so fast. And the grapes were on the floor. He said he had done nothing. She listed crime after crime, and I sat there taking hit straight to the face. Every hit straight to the face. It became glaringly obvious that these people were not our friends. They were not there to help us, but to shame and condemn us. They cautioned us to comply with their demands or they would take further action. They left 3 hours later. This meeting only further served to deepen the chasm that had begun to grow between the adoptees and our family and our family and our church. Do you have adopted kids in your church? Do you walk alongside those parents? Do you help those parents? Do you support those parents? Do you pray for those parents? Or do you criticize those parents behind their back or to their face? Perhaps you have now walked a mile in somebody's shoes who has adopted children. Perhaps that will help us as a church to do better. This is Wretched Radio.